Budget Research Office.
Hi, this is Edna. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
All right, I'm on my Zoom page. The only thing I'm seeing,
All right, I think we're about ready to go. Apologize for the delay. It's not technical issues this time like it was last time. It was me and traffic issues trying to get here. So it's you never know what you're going to get when you come driving through Atlanta on Tuesday. So, but thank y'all for being here. This is going to be the final meeting of the House Study Committee on Disaster Mitigation and Resilience. And I'll ask Chairman Jay Collins if he would open us in a word of prayer.
Everyone, please bow their heads. Our most gracious, kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day to come over here and work for the good of the will of the people of this great state. Lord, we thank you for the people that are in this room who care about our issues, Lord. And we thank you that we've served with some really good representatives all across this state. We ask your blessings upon our governor and our speaker and our lieutenant governor and the Senate and the House and all of the folks that are under the sound of our voice and throughout this great state and this nation. We ask for your will to be done. We ask for a comforting and a blessed Christmas season and New Year's. All of these things we ask humbly in your name. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Collins. I guess we'll get started talking about, we want to welcome the committee members, first of all. Online, we've got Representative Edna Jackson joining us via Zoom. So I appreciate her taking the time to join online. And I know it's kind of a tough trip as she probably could have gotten here in about the same time from Savannah as I did from where I was coming from. But I appreciate her being online and Chair Lady Smith and Chairman Collins. Chair Lady Smith, would you like to say anything as we get started? Oh, well, I guess it'd help if I turned your mic on. Hang on a minute. Yeah.
Maybe we should add traffic control to our problems around the Atlanta urban area.
Yeah, I think yeah, that could definitely fall under disaster mitigation sometimes. Chairman Collins, any opening remarks?
So I want to thank y'all for continuing the work of the committee. I was in absentia for the last two meetings, and my heart was with you here, but had other commitments that I just couldn't get away from. I think this is very important work, and I'm hoping that the fruits of this labor will provide a crop of success with regards to emergency management and resilience, because as we move forward as a state, and I don't think we can talk about this enough, being the 8th most populous state in the nation, with a booming ag industry, technology, it's going to be more and more important as we move forward to make sure that we have the tools and resources to cope with a number of issues that we're faced with natural disasters from the coast to the mountains. We've seen since this committee first met the destruction and damage that you can have in a mountainous area. So, we think about flooding, we think about a lot of disasters where weather is an issue along the coast. And you just look back to what happened in North Carolina and the mountainous terrain and how that community and that area could be devastated with a hurricane. So thank you, Chairman, for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you. And I understand you had some other things. I do appreciate you being here with us, especially today. And it is, I appreciate the comment about the growing state being the 8th most populous. And we're going to continue to grow. I think we're going to continue to add infrastructure and people. And so the opportunities for ramifications from storms and natural disasters is going to continue to increase. So I'm glad that we have a chance to talk about it, to try to add some things in place now as we continue to grow. And Representative Jackson, did you have some comments you wanted to make? All right, Representative Jackson, if you had some comments you wanted to make, just unmute yourself. I think we've got the audio on. Okay. All right. Well, if you do, just raise your hand on there, and we will join back in with you and make sure we get your comments as well. This has been, when we first started this, I thought it was an important topic. There were some recent events that had happened that made it, more directly impactful for me, with the tornadoes that came through our area, and one came down my street in January of 2023. But as we went throughout the year, it became much more pressing, how imperative it is that we have these discussions. We, there's going to be things that we're not going to be able to avoid. There's certain things that we can't mitigate, and natural disasters are going to happen. But there are certainly some things we could do, some best practices we could put in place, some technologies that we can employ, some coordination that we can put together. And I think that will help us, mitigate some of the effects of those disasters and recover faster from them. And ultimately, as I've said before, the goal ultimately is to protect lives and property. We're trying to put things in place that'll help the people of Georgia be safe. And
Mr.
I
Chairman.
think we. Oh, hey, yes.
Hi, I have heard every word. This is Edna. I've heard
Yeah.
every word that you've been saying. I couldn't get any visual. I had the audio some kind of way. Here I am. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate everything that the committee has been doing. I'm sorry I couldn't get there. I left Atlanta on Friday, and Friday afternoon, I had a terrible car accident and totaled my car as well, but I'm alive and well and doing quite well. So I appreciate you and your team arranging for me to be a part of this final meeting. I don't know whether it's final or whether we will continue, because I feel that this is so important, particularly on the coast of Georgia as well. And that is why, I'm glad that I'm getting through, and you can visually, I don't know if you can see me, but you can visually know or at least audio, know that I am here and I'm listening and I will participate. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And we can see you and we can hear you. And I am sorry that you were involved in that accident, but I'm very thankful that you were okay.
Thank you.
I had no idea that you had that happen. And coincidentally, we had that, my wife and kids, back in November. They were in an accident and totaled her vehicle as well. Thankfully, they were okay. So I know what that's that's a big deal. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us online. And like I said, I'm very glad that you're okay, and I appreciate all of your efforts and input throughout the process. And these discussions will go on. We'll continue to talk about this. This will be the last meeting of this study committee, as it's currently constructed. But these are going to be conversations that we have, I think, going forward for years and years to come. In fact, I think we'll probably have them, in as long as we're here, because there's going to be things that I hope we can do to improve things. But we're going to get into the report. I don't want to appreciate everybody's time. I don't want to keep everybody too long. We gathered a lot of information. We had a lot of really good input from a lot of different presenters. When I first started and we first started scheduling some meetings, I wasn't sure how much in input and involvement we were going to get from, different folks. And I'll tell you, I've been really, surprised and thankful that we've had so many people want to take part in these discussions, which really just highlighted the fact that there are a lot of people who not only care about these issues, but have things to offer. They have a role to play in recovering from and mitigating effects of natural disasters. And so we gathered a lot of great information at each meeting. The first meeting we had in Jackson, we had some good information specifically related to the tornadoes that came through in January 2023. And then we had our second meeting scheduled in Savannah that we ended up having to postpone because of Hurricane Milton. So we were resilient though, and we rescheduled. And so we had our second meeting in Savannah. Great information there as well. Really hearing about, especially some coastal hazards and the resilience program Chatham County has. And we got to go out and tour Tybee Island, which was very informational for me to kind of see what effects they have, and just the erosion that they suffer, especially when we have these storm surge events, and the dunes program they're trying to do to try to help with flooding. But that's and I think Representative Jackson commented specifically, and we included here in the report. A lot of things that we heard about, we wanted to comment on in the report that may not have made it into a specific recommendation, but they were certainly discussed. And one of those was about US 80 traveling to and from Tybee Island. This is kind of the only road in and out. And when there's, the flood comes in, if you have a storm surge come in at high tide, it can be quite a while before you get resources and help out to the island to help those folks. So that's something that I think will be discussed about what we can do. It is a federal highway, right? So it's, there's going to be a lot of discussion about what we can do to mitigate some of that, but we learned a lot there. And then our final meeting here, really kind of wrapped up everything. Had a lot of presenters, especially the folks from North Carolina, and just kind of we talked a lot with them specifically about Next Gen 911 and how they were able to utilize it to respond or make sure that calls for help were able to be answered during those floods. And I'll tell you, it's pretty, I can't quite describe how bad the damage is up there in some of those places. I mean, they had some pictures, there's towns that don't exist anymore. And so, their ability to use Next Gen 911 to make sure that folks, if they were able to get a signal on their cell phone, they were able to get in touch with somebody who could try to send them help. That was very informative for me. And also the South Carolina Office of Resilience, just hearing how they have structured their office, their plans, their resilience plan, was really good to get some information. They were kind enough to send kind of their organizational chart, kind of a layout, just sort of and there's one thing I did find is that every state that has a Office of Resilience or a Chief Resiliency Officer or both, there doesn't seem to be any two models that are alike. Every one of them is different. And so, it's kind of up to each state, I guess, to kind of figure out what works best for them. And that's what we're going to do. And then, Pew, the charitable trusts, they were incredibly supportive. They really were a driving force behind this, and gave us a lot of really good information, kind of pulled it all together and wrapped it all up with some suggestions and some best practices from other states that we were able to use to go through and come up with our recommendations. And so with that, I guess I'll go in and kind of just briefly explain the recommendations, and then we'll ask for some discussion and love to hear from the committee members. This was sent to y'all earlier. I know it wasn't sent real far in advance. We've kind of been under a time crunch here because, trying to get done before the holidays. We even had to extend our study committee date just to get enough meetings in and we could have probably we had 3, we could have very easily had 3 more, I think. So, but the recommendations that we've come up with, at least for now, the first recommendation is to establish a state office of resilience and chief resilience officer, and have it be administratively attached to the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. We heard with Next Gen 911, we heard from GECA, the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, and that's how they're set up. They're their own agency, but they're administratively attached to GEMA for human resources and administrative purposes. So I think creating a whole new standalone agency right now would be a pretty heavy lift. And I don't want us to get bogged down in trying to figure out the HR, the administration and all that. What I want to do is try to get some things in place to get some folks to work on that. And GEMA and Chris Stallings and his staff, he was at the last meeting in Atlanta. They have done and continue to do an exceptional job. Their response, their actions, leading up to, during, and immediately after these emergencies. You can't say enough about what they do. This is really to help give them some more support and kind of continue those efforts long term. The resilience office and the chief resilience officer would be tasked with creating a state resilience plan and trying to pull all of these varied resources together, much like we have the EOPs that GEMA has done with emergency management. This would be a way for, as I commented on several times during the meetings, we often suffer from a recency bias where we're going to think about it right now and really do some things and put some plans in place. 6, 7, 8 years, you have new administrations in some cities and counties that, weren't in those positions back when the storms or hurricanes happened, or tornadoes, or whatever the disaster may be. It may not be top of mind for them. And so those plans they put in place tend to get shelved, and they don't look at them again until they realize that they were not updated enough for the next time they had a disaster. And so this is really to make sure that there's somebody who has their eye on the ball on this topic all the time, to make sure they're coordinating, to take all of these resources. And when I say all of these resources, I mean a lot of resources. There is a lot of people that have a lot of help to offer, to help coordinate that, so we can make sure that it is deployed as effectively and efficiently. And really the long-term recovery, there's still people now, as we talked about before, there's still people in South Georgia and Southeast Georgia that don't have power because they can't get their power meters. They can't get an electrician to come out and make sure that it's, safe, and get an inspection from the county so they can get their power turned back on. This is going to be months and months and months. We won't hear about it on the news, but it's going to be months, if not, years of people recovering from this. And so this office and this chief resilience officer would be tasked with coordinating those efforts, the long-term planning of resilience, coming up with a state resilience plan, and then coordinating with all the local government agencies to help them have a plan as well, and to coordinate resources should we have, or when we unfortunately have another natural disaster. The next recommendation would be to implement Next Generation 911 as a replacement to the current legacy 911 technology. That was something that we heard. In fact, the first thing that Director Stallings mentioned to me when I talked to him after Helene was about Next Gen 911. that is something that we can do relatively quickly. And it's something that would make a real difference, not just during disasters and storms and the things that we're talking about here, but just in general response to public safety issues. It allows for calls to be transferred, um, to other agencies that can answer anywhere in the state, essentially. Right now, we're kind of limited with the legacy 911 system, who you can get to transfer calls to. That way you can make sure that there's going to be somebody to answer, but the ability to track cell phones and pinpoint locations, share information, you know, even people can send text messages and pictures from their cell phone to 911. It's really incredible technology, and I think that um, it's going to be really impactful to the public safety in Georgia. That being said, it's not going to be without a cost, right? That's all of these things are, involve expenditures of capital. And so one of the things with that, we suggested that there be a state fee study or a legislative study committee to study the assessment of 911 fees and the long-term local government funding of Next Gen 911. There are going to be some places, as we heard, that are already up, ready to go. They have the equipment technology in place that if we went to the Next Gen 911 system, um, they'd be ready to go day one. There's some other places that they're having a hard time now, even operating the legacy 911 system. It's funny, a couple of days before our last meeting, I had a chief from a South Georgia police department say he wanted to talk to me about the 911 fees and how they're, the amount of them and how rural Georgia is struggling to just update their legacy 911 equipment. And so I think that's something that needs to be looked at. Obviously, 911 is it's a crucial part of the public safety process. That is how people call for help. That's how, if they can't call and let us know they need help, we certainly can't respond. And so that's something we're going to look at as well. Another suggestion that I thought was really good came from Jake with Farm Bureau, or not Farm Bureau anymore, Forestry. Sorry, Jake. But he talked about the reforestation tax credit. I believe that was implemented in 2018 after Hurricane. What was the name of that? Michael, yeah, aptly named. Hurricane Michael in 2018. I think the state did a reforestation tax credit for the forestry industry, landowners, and affected counties to try to help get those crops replanted in a timely manner. This is going to be long impact from the damage to some of these timber crops. It doesn't, you can't grow those back in a couple of years. It takes a long time. And so the sooner we can get those fields replanted with those trees, the better off we're going to be. And so I think I even heard one of our colleagues on the other side of the building comment about this, the tax credit and maybe plans to do that. But we want to make sure that if they don't, we want to make sure we help out as well. So.
Ways and Means originate.
Yeah, I know. But that,
Tell the other chamber that.
yeah, we've had those discussions with that. Chairman Blackman and I had that discussion this past session with some of them, but they, that's fine. We'll take their suggestions and help start those tax credit conversations on our side of the building. And then the last suggestion would be to suggest revisions to the state building code to include requirements for new build nursing homes and really medical facilities in general, nursing homes, assisted living, to have secondary power sources, including a requirement that existing facilities. I apologize. That is really that somebody was really calling. to make sure that existing facilities install power transfer switches within a 5 to 10 year time frame, and we're going to suggest some revisions to state building code for that. I know Chairman Collins, that was something that you had specifically mentioned. If you want to comment on that.
Absolutely. I think that that's one of the issues that I think that if you look and see natural disasters and how they affect the state throughout, regardless of the geographic area, if it's a snowstorm, if it's a hurricane, a tornado, having a secondary power source for a nursing facility, assisted living, I think it would be a heavy lift if you made everyone do it today, tomorrow, next year, but phase that in over time. Those secondary power sources are more affordable than ever. And I think that as far as helping lighten the burden to our first responders in a natural disaster, when you don't have to evacuate 50, 60, 75 people because of a lack of power, I think that would go a long way in making sure that we're being proactive and looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things that we heard, even discussions during Helene when I was talking to some folks down in South Georgia about what they needed. They needed ways to be able to get gas out of the ground, convenience stores. Now obviously it would be great if they also had transfer switches or secondary power sources there, or at least the ability to immediately hook up and operate those. But it is extremely critical for our nursing homes, assisted living facilities, medical facilities in general, where folks can't just pack up and move. And so we want to make sure during the storms in 2023, one of the hospitals that was then in my district in Jasper County, Jasper Memorial, we talked about that at this meeting in Savannah. They fortunately had power, but their internet was out, and everything they did was VoIP phones and transfers. They couldn't communicate at all. And so we heard from AT&T FirstNet, and they have some solutions for stuff like that. So that was really, really good to hear. So yeah.
Comment on that. The twisted copper wire technology that we utilize for telecommunications is a proven technology. And as we get further down the road with voice over IP, you're starting to see a pivot and a shift away from that. And that's concerning to me as a small business owner, because due to the nature of my business, if I don't have a phone, I'm out of business. And you look at how we've had a movement, and specifically with energy, how we've gotten away from coal and trying to shift to solar and wind and those kind of things. And I think you look at telecommunications the same way. I think we have to make sure and preserve some of that twisted copper wire, the old way of being able to do that. When the power does go out, you can still communicate, because we put all our eggs in the technology basket of voice over IP, and somebody unplugs everything, you're really stuck. But if we continue to just basically maintain and require, I think as we move forward as a state, require that some of that older technology be conserved and preserved, if you will, for the public safety community. I think that'll go a long way, and we don't need to overlook that as this committee and the Public Safety Committee move forward. I think that needs to be a part of a bigger conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's it's funny. We used to keep a phone around our house. Now we were probably the last people in Georgia to have a landline. But when we did still have a landline, and we kept a corded phone that we could plug in case power went out and our cell phones or our cordless phones wouldn't work. So yeah, it's nice to have that around every now and then. Representative Jackson, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
No, I'm not. Can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. When you're talking about landlines, I still have a landline just in case. And maybe that's being old fashioned, but I do have one. But the other thing that I wanted to add to what you were saying, when you were talking about the trees and timber and having to replant all of that. One of the concerns I know that I had after the conversation that went on in the meeting was the removal of the old trees. It seems like in this process after the storm, hurricane, or whatever you want to call it, there was and still is a lot of timber that is laying on the ground. And as as we were talking, they were discussing it. If it stays down there, worms and stuff will get in, so they become useless. So I didn't know if that was anything that should have been addressed according to what it is. We have to have that timber. And I love trees and I love to see them grow. But when you have them down on the ground and you say that they can get these bugs in, and then you can't even use them to in a paper factory or what have you. So I didn't know if there was something that was addressed in that manner.
No, ma'am, not specifically in these. By the time any of these recommendations we get back to session, they could work their way through the process. I think that any benefit it would have to those current trees on the ground would probably have passed. But I do know when Jake was presenting, he had talked about that. They do have some plans. They have some plans for other paper mills and things to take a lot of these trees. That was the biggest problem, is they didn't have anywhere that was prepared right now to take all of that. So I think they were working through that. But that is one of the things. That's why I think it's really important to have the resilience office. There was a lot of other recommendations as you read through the report. There's a lot of conversations in the report and things that were mentioned in there that I think are going to be more long term, and that's why I really wanted the resilience office and chief resilient officer to get to work on the resilience plan, because those are going to be a lot of things that are going to need to be talked about. That a lot of the other things are going to need to be under the purview of that group to plan for future storms. So thank you very much. Chair Lady Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members and staff, for your support and effort as we've addressed this very difficult topic. If I were to come away with one phrase, is that what we're trying to achieve is not what I would call a one and done effort. That is what we tend to do in the General Assembly. We budget on a 2-year cycle. We get elected on a 2-year cycle. A lot of our executive people are there for 4 years. We move like caring people for the disaster. But you take a deep breath, and 3 years later, it's not on any. Let's just say it doesn't get the attention through media and everything that it did. So I think we need almost a new way of thinking when we deliberate as a body. In other words, we've come up with this, we've got this program, we got what we want to do, but we don't know what the next disaster is going to be. And to me, the most poignant thing I've learned was that so many people they didn't have the equipment, they didn't keep it up, they didn't fund it locally. There was, there just was not an ability to respond, but we prioritize where we spend taxpayer money. And I believe the taxpayers would be very supportive of this body trying to message out to everyone, we can't put this on the shelf. And that's why I think your title, Disaster Mitigation and Resilience, is so important, as well as our State Office of Resilience and Chief Resilience Officer. We would have a totally different conversation in 2 years. It'd be about different things. And we have so many issues that come before state government that we ourselves have to try and figure out how and what to do. So I think we have made the correct recommendations. One of the things I learned is communication doesn't exist only after a disaster or while it's going on. And we even heard a very poignant message from our colleagues in South Carolina. They said, we wished we could have had Georgia to talk to during this period of time, and they didn't. And we didn't know what all they were going through. So communication has to be in the mix, flexibility, ability to respond. And then I think in the budget process, we need to be good stewards and make sure that we are prepared as we continue to address these important issues. But I was impressed with all the people, our citizens and others who came forward to testify. It was really involved process, and I thank you for that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I appreciate I appreciate your engagement and all your comments throughout the process and input. And to that point, there's going to be other conversations that need to be had. And I think that's one of the reasons the office is going to be important is to they can go out and look and figure out what next steps needs to happen when this study committee no longer exists. They can be in place to help keep those conversations going and make sure we're staying at the forefront of our ability to respond and help people recover from these. So that's kind of the idea behind it. The funding part of it. I know there was some talk and suggestions and conversations about a funding mechanism, ongoing fund, and I think that's what I would like to look for or hope that the Office of Resilience would come back with recommendations for things like that. Some of that, get them in place and let them, the people who are going to be the experts in that, come back and tell us what they need to fulfill that mission. We give them the mission and let them tell us what they need and the best way to do that. And so hopefully that's a step we're taking here. So anybody else from the committee have any more comments? Chairman Collins, anything good? All right. I know we had a couple of public comments that we had. So Rena Peck with Georgia Rivers, you'd like to come up and speak? Let me find the button. There it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Crowe. Thank all of you for all your work. Just wanted to add, along with the representative from Savannah, the discussion about wildfire. And in Georgia, we've got the largest wildfires in the nation because of the Okefenokee Swamp, the most expensive in Department of Interior's history. And so when you talk about affecting people and property, also the most expensive to suppress. For example, in 2007, the fire was over 550,000 acres. It cost $100 million of taxpayers' dollars to put out and caused $113 million of damage on the tree farms that we were talking about. So I'd like to suggest that our state work more closely with the Fish and Wildlife Service to protect Okefenokee Trail Ridge and perhaps even support their acquisition boundary extension proposal to include the rest of Okefenokee Trail Ridge, because we all know that mining lowers the water table, exacerbating drought, and drought conditions are what fuel the fires. So thanks for all your work on that and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate your comments. Those are certainly discussions that need to be had. I don't know that they're exactly under the purview of this, but I think that would be something that that the Office of Resilience and the Chief Resilience Officer, those are going to be conversations. There's a lot of different, there's things that drought we didn't talk about.
Right.
We had initially tried to plan a meeting for Albany in South Georgia. Southwest Georgia, talking about drought, some of the issues down there with farms and things, and we didn't have enough time to get to all that. So there's still a lot of conversations, which is why I think the having those folks that can go out and work on these things and have those conversations and bring the message back to us of what we can do to be most effective is really important. But thank you for your time.
I agree. Because there's so much with natural infrastructure that can help. With disaster mitigation. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Ken Wainwright. How are you, sir?
How are you? How is the committee doing? I hope you're doing well. This is going to be a little unorthodox on this request. And first off, my heart goes out to Savannah. Savannah's my second home. Representative Jackson, I hope that Savannah's doing much better and that we could really get the people to help, because anyone that goes to Savannah knows they have the best seafood, and it's just a beautiful place, you know. And so this is something that's going to be a little unorthodox today, as far as my request. Um, the disaster, especially one of the things that we've been working on at the CAP, it has been crime. And I know we're dealing with disaster right now, but we've gotten some assistance from Representative Scott Hilton and a couple others. And I'm really excited. It's been a blessing. And I came in faith because there is a gentleman by the name of Ian who works in policy, Ian Caraway. Okay, I've been struggling to get a hold of him and get him in the fold, because this is going to help a lot of people as far as being able to cut some of the things that's been happening, especially in Gwinnett. I need you guys' help in getting him in the fold and certain things that are going to be put in this piece of legislation after being notified that he would be involved. And if I could just get your assistance, I'll leave my contact information, but if I could, it would be great.
In this legislation,
And this current one is coming up, this current session.
the session, okay,
Yeah.
but is that anything to do with disaster
Nah,
mitigation?
that's why I said it's a little unorthodox, but I know this is getting recorded, and I think it'll get to them.
Well, we certainly love to talk about public safety items.
Yeah.
When it becomes time for public safety stuff. So
Yep.
thank you for being here.
No, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. All right. That's the only people we had signed up. Anybody else here want to say anything real quick before we move on? Those are unnatural disasters. That is exactly right. So, all right. Well, I think, the next step would be, Chair Lady Smith,
No, Mr. Chairman, just at the proper time.
I was fixing to say this would be the proper time.
I would like to make a motion that the committee pass these recommendations.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second from Chairman
Second.
Collins. Yep. And Representative Jackson as well. All right. Any further discussion from anyone? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? It sounds like it was unanimous. All right. Thank y'all very much. I would also like to take a minute and just thank a few folks before we wrap up. I want to thank the committee members for all the work. And I especially want to take a moment of personal privilege and thank Chairman Collins for his service to people of the state of Georgia. I've gotten to serve with you the entire time I've been here on public safety, with you chairing it as your vice chairman the last couple of years. And it's been a pleasure and honor to get to work with you and to get to know you. The state is going to miss you being up here, but you have some pressing issues at home and a pretty little girl that needs her daddy. So but thank you for taking the time out. I guess this is going to be your official last meeting. So farewell tour. Any final comments for you before you?
The Public Safety Committee is going to be in good hands with members like you. And I've enjoyed serving with Chair Lady Smith here, who was my neighbor behind me in the house for a number of years and beside me. And it's bittersweet. I really enjoyed serving the people, being a representative of House District 71. It's been the honor of a lifetime. And the only thing that seems to stay the same around here is that everything changes. So Andy Griffith starts in 2 hours. So
Well,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you again. And Chair Lady Smith and Representative Jackson, thank y'all both for all of your input. I'd like to thank Speaker Burns, for creating the committee and agreeing to appoint members to it and let us have this discussion. Of course, it wouldn't have happened without him. Christina Ty and Marcy Rubinson and Megan Mercer, thank y'all for your help. Y'all were a driving force behind this as well, along with Christiana and Matthew from Pew Charitable Trusts. they really brought a lot of information and resources and things. So thank all of you for helping move this discussion forward. It was very, very timely and very impactful. Betsy Theroux, Justin Speck, everyone at House Media Services Office. I know they really they
Yeah.
had their hands last meeting, and they worked their tails off to make sure that we were able to get the meeting done and have it put out to the public as it should be. Chelsea Bell, my administrative assistant, for helping coordinating all the stuff. Kate Alexander, our legislative counsel, thank you for being here. I wish we could have taken you to Savannah with us, but you know. Well, thank you for all of your support. And last but not least, certainly last but not least, Michael Satterfield. Michael, you have been fantastic in this time. I can't tell you, yes, I can't tell you how much work Michael has done. Michael and I have taught weekends and nights, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And throughout this process, he worked on this report all weekend long. We were chatting on Sunday about things in the report and certain things. And you have done yeoman's work. And I have really enjoyed getting to work with you on this. And I appreciate all the support. And I may have mentioned that to the person who heads up that group you're in when I saw her in Athens the other week. So I want to make sure that we let her know how appreciative that we are. You've done a great job. So I think that is all we've got. Anything from anybody else? It is Andy Griffith comes on 2 hours, you said? 2 hours. All right. We may can get home from Atlanta. That being said, thank y'all all again for being here, and that will conclude this study committee meeting. Thank you.